So,
So nature is the divine and the sacred source of our life, and that the miracle of nature is that we can interact with the source of our life. This is completely opposed to the usual religious creed, which places the source of our life, the paternal Father God, remember, outside of ourselves in some unreachable or unattainable dimension. You know, do you remember, have either of you ever heard of the book that made a very big success in the 60s? It's called The Secret Life of Plants
yes, yes,
Yes.
yes.
by Peter Tompkins. Fantastic book. Even today, to read this book is really amazing. And, you know, it contains Ramon, it contains many examples of what you're talking about, of the interactivity between plants and humans is absolutely extraordinary. It proves by scientific methods and also by the testimony of many people that plants are sentient, that they have emotions, that they react to our emotions, just like, of course, our animals and our pets do. So it is this cosmic animism. It is this interactivity with everything that lives is the beginning of our connection to her. And that road is infinite. It goes as deep as you can possibly go. And ultimately, it leads back to the source of her life. And as the myth says, the source of her life is the galactic center.
So you said that the aeons were in a serpentine form. That kind of makes me think of the experiences people have that they recount when taking ayahuasca and seeing the serpents there. It's just, and they're always female.
That's right.
So,
That's right. That's because the ayahuasca experience gives access to frequencies. I don't particularly like that word because it's kind of mechanical and non-organic. But let's say living frequencies, living vibrations that are always seen as snake-like because they are snake-like. Because these vibrations, which are actually coming from the earth itself, the visions that you see on ayahuasca of a serpent are actually the life vibrations or pranic vibrations of the planet itself. And the reason why they appear to be serpents and actually are serpents is because that's the way that they move. And they are, the way that they appear in human imagination is not an hallucination. It is a true and veracious conversion by the imagination of these frequencies. Just like when you look out and you see a tree, when you're sober and you're not on any psychoactive plant or ayahuasca, you look out and you see a tree, and your brain converts the sense impressions coming from that tree into the coherent image of a tree. That's not an illusion. Likewise, when you are under in the altered state of ayahuasca or some other psychoactive plant, you have a higher spectrum of frequencies that you can access. And the human imagination converts these frequencies into true hallucinations. There are hallucinations, but they are also actually true and real, just as a tree or a cloud is true and real. And time again, these primordial frequencies are seen as serpentine forms.
so another aspect of the whole emanation thing that she did coming into this planet was a byproduct of the archons and
Right.
nasty little buggers.
Well, yes and no. I mean, nobody wants to have a bunch of cockroaches in your bed, you know. But it's unpleasant to have cockroaches in your bed, but, you know, it's not fatal. And you can shake them out of your bed, and you can shake the archons out of your head. So this is something that we must look at when we consider the Gnostic myth of the Sophia.
So the archons, and I understand pretty well what they are now and the effects that they have. What do we have on the others? Is there are there other entities on the other side of the archon? You know, people talk about their guardian spirits and the angelic realms. What do you see as for the validity on that side of it?
Well, I'd use this example. if you go to Central America and you go into Panama and you decide to take a long walk into the mountains and the hills of Panama, it's a mountainous tropical area. And you will find, as you're making your journey through the jungle there, you'll encounter a fair number of insects. And for the most part, these insects, whether it be ants, flies, dragonflies, beetles, whatever, there'll be thousands and thousands of them that are not harmful. In fact, some of them could be benevolent, and some of them might be very beautiful, such as butterflies. But there is one insect that you would encounter in the Panamanian jungles and in other jungles of the world, which is known as the Anopheles mosquito. And that insect, if it bites you, gives you malaria, which is a very horrible way to die. And so it would make sense if you were going off trekking into the Panamanian mountains to know that there is at least one predatory insect you want to watch out for. Well, the same thing kind of applies for our situation here on Earth in the solar system. I believe, and I think many other people would endorse this view, that there are many, many benevolent, spiritual, and interdimensional beings around humanity. There are spirit guides, there are angels, there are all kinds. All indigenous peoples attest to the presence of benign and benevolent star beings, star brothers, name them what you will. And it's wonderful to think that humanity, as a species living on this special planet, should have portals and gateways of consciousness and connection with these beings. And the more we learn about them and the more we can communicate with them and understand them and they understand us, the better it is for everyone concerned. But it would be of paramount importance at the same time to know if, like the Anopheles mosquito, there is one predatory species. Just one. If we could identify just one predatory species, we would already have we would have an extremely important piece of information. Well, as I point out in my book, and you know, Tom, I dedicate several chapters to this subject of the archons. The Gnostic teachings that have survived, just barely survived, from the ancient world contain the most complete, coherent, lucid, reasonable, and applicable explanation of ET presence that I have ever found. I have studied the ET phenomena for 20, 30 years. I've read 200 or 300 books on it. I've talked to many people about it. I've had a number of encounters myself. And I'm convinced that the Gnostic description of the archons is the most helpful description of an alien presence, a predatory alien presence. And not only that, but as you know, the Sophia story explains how these archon ETs originate. It explains what they're doing in the solar system, how they got to be there, what their nature is, what their appearance is, describes the two types of the gray ET, which is a neonate or embryonic type creature, resembling a prematurely born fetus, and the so-called Drakon, Drakon, or the reptilian type. So both these types of predatory aliens are described explicitly in the Nag Hammadi Gnostic materials. And this is worth reading these materials just for this information alone, because I think you would agree with me that it's really astonishing what they say.
Have you ever had personally any dealings with either the other side of the predatory spirits?
Are you talking about the
The
negative
benevolent one.
aspects or the positive aspects from it?
No, the positive, the benevolent ones.
Oh, benevolent. Oh,
Yeah.
certainly. I've had, through my life from a very early age, in lucid dreams, in altered states which have happened spontaneously through Kundalini or through the practice of shamanism with psychoactive plants. I've had many experiences of supernatural beings, mainly of a feminine kind, Dakini type beings. I have supernatural guardians. I know exactly who they are. I can communicate with them clearly. So I've had the benefit of this benevolent contact of guidance and healing and protection. And I have to add, I believe we all do. I believe we all do. I believe that it is not an anomaly or an exception, that it is part of our participation as the human species in the great congress of beings. Uh, the Hopis would tell you exactly the same thing I'm saying now. Hopi children and people in the Hopi communities, just to cite one example of many, are aware from an early age of the presence of spiritual beings who guide and protect and teach. And I've had the benefit of those all through my life.
I I have a quick experience where always it's a woman who talks to me, like when you're in between that stage of waking up
And
and
sleeping,
sleeping.
yeah. It's called the hypnagogic state, yes. Very sensitive state where you can access other frequencies and subliminal aspects of mind.
It's usually a woman who talks to me, and she has a very motherly figure. Um,
Mhm.
so my question is to you: these in the spiritual aspect, is it like more you you have like maybe like a surrogate mother, a spiritual surrogate mother besides your biological one,
You
or
could
is
say
that
that.
one,
You could say
or is
that.
that one spirit's Sophia the one that acts as the
Well, there are many spiritual guardians. I prefer the word guardian to guide. My guardian, for instance, is a witch or Dakini type creature of a pretty pretty high voltage type of babe uh, who is known and recognized in certain mythologies. And I would say that it's a good practice if you know who your guide is. And does she have a name? Does she tell you
my
her
guide?
name? Yeah.
Um, no, she's never directly given me her name, but I
Mhm.
had a friend of mine's and Tom's, James, told me her name. Her name is Lily.
Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's you can find out their name from other ways. My experience is that they generally don't tell you their name. You have to infer it or find it out yourself. That's part of the connection that builds the connection with them. But what you're asking is, who are these feminine presences? Well, Gaia herself, or Gaia Sophia, as I call this embodied divinity of the earth, has projections of her identity through these various goddess channels. And so, in a sense, every single goddess or female guardian that a human being can encounter would, in some respect, be a projection or extension of her. But you can also encounter her directly as well, can also directly interact with Gaia herself. This is now possible.
And what is one of the methods that you use
Well,
to
the main
interact
method
with her?
that I used to communicate with Gaia is the same method that was used for thousands of years by the Gnostics or Telestai in the mystery schools. You'll see in my book that there's a chapter called The Sheaf of Cut Wheat. And this is a very important chapter because it establishes uh, a view that has been supported recently in the last 20 or 30 years by many, many